and welcome. My name is Calliope, and today's video is going to be something a little on the personal side for me, and it's something a little different than I've ever done before. So I'm just going to try to give you a little overview, and then we will just jump right into the meat of the discussion, okay? Excellent. So, today I wanted to try my hand at drawing for you some hieroglyphs, some ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. Ancient Egypt has been one of my favorite subjects, even more than plants, for pretty much my entire life. And my one biggest regret in life is that I did not go into Egyptology. However, there was no way I would have been able to afford it, so it just be like that sometimes, I guess. So I had started attempting to learn to read and write ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs when I was about 12 or 13, and I continued with it off and on until I was 16, and I went to college and enrolled in a class that was supposed to be the basis for the ancient Egyptian language. I brought my big binder of all of my notes, things I had translated before, and my whole list of everything I knew. And the professor of that class looked at the binder and let me know that I was miles ahead of that class and they wouldn't even begin to touch most of that stuff that I had done. So after that, I just kind of let it drop. What was the point at that point? And, where was I going to take that? If I wasn't going into Egyptology, where would I go, So while it's been years and years since I've really attempted to get back into writing hieroglyphs again, I thought maybe it might be a good time to maybe just see how it goes. So I am going to attempt to do that with you today. The love has always been there, however, it's just not something super practical. However, the knowledge does help with trivia, and I've always followed the newest discoveries of what's going on in Egypt, most notably the Saqqara tomb and mortuary temple, if you will, funeral home. So it just kind of reignited the passion. So ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs were not exactly, it was kind of a proto-writing, I think it's been called, so obviously not like the words we have today, but pictures that represent either sounds or literal objects. Today we are going to be going into uniliteral signs, which mean signs that represent one sound rather than, it's usually just one tiny little sound rather than, say, a hieroglyph of a spine, Osiris's spine, and that being the hieroglyph for a shed. So these are just going to be little sounds. And though traditionally one would write hieroglyphs on this papyrus, this is bona fide papyrus made from Egypt. Today we're just going to use just a regular sheet of paper and a clipboard. Alright, so I'm going to do my best to write some hieroglyphs with you and tell you a little bit about them. So we're going to start with the hieroglyph for the Egyptian vulture. And I am using a guide for this mostly because it's been a long time since I have written hieroglyphs. And also, I mean, they are pictures, so let's see. So I'm going to try to write these big enough that y'all can actually see them, but small enough that I can hopefully get a good amount on the page. Okay, that should be it. So that is going to be our Egyptian vulture. Which is going to make the sound. Okay, so there's our little vulture here. So this is going to make the sound ah. So right there, our Egyptian vulture. So now we're going to move on to something a little more easy for me. This one here is going to be a flowering reed, and this would make the sound E. And for our next one, we're going to just double that up. It's not going to look exactly the same, but somewhat close. Okay, so pretty similar, but this is going to be the double flowering reed, and this can make the sound E, or like a YE sound. And then we have something very simple. Just two simple little dash marks. And these are also going to make the same sound as the double flowering reed. This one is easy to remember how to do by just simple memory. Okay, so this hieroglyph represents the sound ah as well, and this is supposed to be a forearm. if I were to just dress this up a bit, I could just flesh it out a little. Just like that. Just clean it up. There we go. Just like that. Okay, so now I'm going to do our little quail chick. So let me see here. Quail chick was one of my favorites to do. Thought it was just very cute looking. So this is our quail chick. Quail chick with the sound, W sound, or the oo sound right here. It's our little baby. So another way we could also represent this in hieratic, which is a shorthand version of hieroglyphs. Hieratic is, well, I mean, you could say it's like the texting form of normal words, like back in the 2000s/early 10s. You had all those little, LOL, LMAO, stuff like that. So hieratic was used much more often, where hieroglyphs was used for your mega official things. That was your pretty writing. And hieratic was used for everything else. People who knew hieratic didn't necessarily know the old hieroglyph writing, but they knew how to write it in shorthand. There we go. So that's going to be our hieratic form of that little quail chick. Hieratic. Alrighty, so now we're going to move on. Alright, so now we have another little simple one. This is the hieroglyph for the uniliteral sound B or B with the sign of a leg. Now we've got another real simple one. This would be the hieroglyphic representation of a stool, and this is going to be the sound P or P. Made the tail go up a little too far. So this is going to be a very poorly representation of a horned viper, and this is going to be the sound for F or F. There we go. Alrighty. Here's another one of my favorites because it was relatively simple. It's funny, as I keep doing these, that I'm starting to remember how they were drawn, how I liked to draw them. If I could give everything up and just go and learn to be an Egyptologist and get to go to Egypt and get to see all of these things, I would, in a heartbeat. I've looked at, tuition and programs and whatnot. It's just not feasible. Here we go. Alrighty, so this is going to be our hieroglyphic representation of an owl, and this makes the sound of M or M. And this cute little face. Now we have another really simple one. We have the symbol for water here, and that is going to make the N sound, or N. This is the symbol of a mouth, and this makes the R sound, the R sound. Okay, and this is the hieroglyph for a shelter, a reed shelter, and this represents the H sound, the H sound. This one's going to be a little tricky to get symmetrical. To put this down for a second. I didn't do half bad. So this is a twisted wick, and this also makes an H sound, just like our shelter. So We don't have too many more to go, but I'm going to switch my page over. Our next one is a touch on the weird side, but this is supposed to be a placenta. I've never seen one before, nor do I hope to ever see one, so I have no idea if that's what it really looks like. But this makes the KH sound, like in Khufu or Khepri or what have you. Alright, so this one is supposed to be the belly and tail of an animal. This makes the KH or HY sound. Alrighty, another little easy one for us. Alright, so we have the symbol for a door bolt, and this represents the or if you are weird, the Z or S sound. This one's also a bit simple, so I'm going to embellish it just a touch, I think. There we go. So, probably would have been nicer if I just left it as is, but this is a folded cloth with the S sound that represents. This is the hieroglyph of a pool with the SH sound. Hope you can do it without whistling so much as I do, but the sh sound. So this is the hieroglyphic representation of a sloped hill, and this makes the Q sound, the quack, quack, quack. I got a little overzealous there. Whoops. this is a basket, not very symmetrical as I got a touch overzealous with it. This makes a K sound, K sound. Just going to move on to the other side. So, this is supposed to represent a jar stand, and this is the symbol for the G sound, the G sound. Almost finished, and then I'll go over everything once more. Some of these I've been able to just knock out pretty easily, but some of them, the vulture, took me a touch of time. So this is the hieroglyph of a bread loaf, and this represents the sound for T, the letter T. Alright, so this is a hieroglyph for a rope, and this is supposed to make the CH, the ch sound, right there. This is the hieroglyphic representation of a hand, and this would make the D sound, the D sound. And lastly, almost done. And this is the hieroglyphic representation of a cobra, as opposed to our horned viper. He doesn't have any horns, and also he is just straight vibin', as opposed to our viper, who is just skittering along. This represents the J sound. So this is just a little guide of uniliteral signs, and I mean, you can't do too much with this. You can't really translate much or put anything into practice, but it's kind of fun. And pronunciation is also a bit of a gray area, because the ancient Egyptians didn't have symbols for, say, the E sound. There was a lot of ambiguity regarding how things would be said, it's said that we would be able to communicate with the ancient Egyptians in writing perfectly, but in speech would probably sound like a mess because we don't really know what they sounded like. That's been lost to the sands of time, unfortunately. So just to run over real quick the symbols that we've done. We have the vulture here, and this represents the ah sound. We had the regular flowering reed, just the one, which represents the E, although not like the E that we had talked about, where there wasn't too much of a representation in that. And we have the double flowering reed, which represents an E or a Y sound. We have the double dashes here, which are also an E or a Y. We have the forearm here, which represents the ah sound. We have the quail chick and its hieratic counterpart, and this represents the W, the woo, or the oo sound right here. We have the symbol of a leg, and this would be the B sound. We have a little stool here, and this is going to be our P. We have a horned viper, which is our F. We have an owl, which is going to be an M. Symbol for water, which is an N. We have the mouth symbol, hieroglyph for the mouth, and this is going to be an R. We have a shelter, which represents an H. We have a wick here at the bottom, which also represents an H. We have the symbol of a placenta here with a KH sound, like in Capri or Khufu or Khafre. We have the belly and tail of an animal here. This is also going to be the KH sound or an HY sound. We have the symbol for a door bolt, which would be the Z, Z, or S sound. The hieroglyph for a folded cloth, which is an S sound. We have the SH sound represented by a pool, just a little rectangle here. We have the sloped hill, which represents the Q sound. We have a basket with a little handle here. That's going to represent a K sound. We have the jar stand here, which represents the G right here. We have a symbol for a bread loaf, which is going to represent the T sound right here. We have a rope, which represents the CH sound right here. We have a hand hieroglyph right here. More looks like a poorly drawn mitten on my part. And this represents a D. And lastly, we have our cobra, who is simply here to vibe, and that's represented by a J right there. That's our little guide to drawing, showing you uniliteral hieroglyph signs. So think this could be cool in the future to do again. I certainly enjoyed it. I know it's not probably something that, really toasts people's croissant, I guess, really butters their egg roll, right? But it was more of a personal thing for me. So I hope nonetheless that you enjoyed the video and all these scratchy scratching sounds of the sketching and all the little unintentional ASMR tracking and tracing sort of movements. I hope you enjoyed this video if you've made it this far. I appreciate you sticking with me. Thank you so much. And I hope you have a whale of a day and a good rest of your night. Thank you. Goodbye now. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Please like this video if you want to, comment if you'd like to, and subscribe